Welcome to Meet Your Nominee. This is Mariah Gullo from The Hollywood Reporter, and I have Edgar Ramirez with me today. Hi.
Hi, Mariah.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Hi, everyone.
Congratulations
Thank
for getting nominated for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Limited Series for The Assassination of Gianni Versace.
Thank you very much.
So there's so much to unpack here, but the first thing I wanted to ask you is the actual show itself has 18 nominations.
Yeah.
What is it like to be a part of that? What do you think the Emmy voters responded to so strongly to the assassination of Gianni Versace?
It's a very honest show, and it's way beyond all the exuberance and the lush and because it's very beautiful. It's very colorful and Gianni Versace, he created this world, of color and exuberance and vitality. But I think that way beyond that, it's a story about family relationships. I think that beyond the underlying homophobia that we explore in the show and also the heinous, horrible crimes that constitute the main focus on the story. I think that in the development and in the exploration of these crimes, that we realize and we discover how much the show is about family ties and family relationships. I mean, the ones that Gianni had with his own family, the ones that Andrew Cunanan had with his family, and also the rest of the victims. I mean, in every episode, you see how and Judith's character, and who's fantastic. She's also nominated. How the family interactions took place in the show, and I think that that's something that we all can relate to, because we all have. I mean, family relationships are the most complex and the most beautiful, because many times you hurt people out of love. You hurt people because you want to help them. And you end up hurting them, but at the same time, that's not what you want to do. And I think that basically it's a show about families that were able to overcome their shortcomings and their frustrations, and who stuck together, when life was throwing punches at them. In the case of the Versace family, whose dynamic was not easy at all, but they stuck together. They found a way to work it out. And then you have the Cunanan family, a family like so many that couldn't just take the pressure and couldn't resolve their frustrations and their shortcomings, and ended up destroying each other.
Yeah.
And then you see the results. You see Andrew Cunanan on one side being this destroyer, and then you have Gianni Versace on this other side being the creator, and of course the other victims in between. So that's something that I've been thinking about a lot in the last months, because I rewatched the show and then realized that some of the most beautiful moments happen with family, among family members.
Yes, and I want to talk about all of this amazing cast.
Yeah.
But first, let's talk about Penelope Cruz.
Yeah.
Plays your sister, Donatella
of course.
Versace.
You see how I get when I Penelope.
Penelope.
Yeah.
One of the scenes that really I reacted to strongly is when she's arguing with Gianni about him coming out and saying that it might be bad for business, and they have that argument. She has to be that devil's advocate about whether he should do it or not. What was that scene like for you to film?
It was a beautiful scene. I mean, it is one of my favorite scenes in the show and that I've ever shot. In my career. It's part of what I was just elaborating on. Yeah. I mean, when you see Penelope playing Donatella in that scene, you may think, well, you're not supporting. She's not supporting his brother. She's trying to keep his brother in the dark, in the closet. Denying who he is, denying his true nature. But at the same time, deep inside, that she didn't know better, and she wanted to help. But by helping, she's restricting his own freedom. And those dilemmas and those contradictions is what make the drama so interesting. Is what makes the show and the dynamic between these two siblings so interesting and so relatable. Actually, that scene is precisely an example of how difficult it is to deal with family dynamics, because she was really dearly trying to help her brother in the best way she could, and she knew, but it wasn't really working for him. So yeah.
the character of Gianni Versace himself, you had to go through a physical transformation for him.
Yeah.
You also have a journalism background, so
Yeah.
what was it like researching the role, and how did your natural skills, journalistic skills, help you with that?
Well, basically, yeah, it's true. I mean, I always have, especially with biographical characters, I have a rather journalistic approach. I mean, I try to learn and read as much as I can about the character, and especially about the historic context of the character. I mean, the world this character lived in, because we are a product of our times. So, and that applies to characters as well. So for me, it was very important to understand, what was going on in the world, what was going on in the world of fashion in the 70s, in the 80s, and then in the 90s, where Versace, became this global fashion icon. For me, that was very important to understand how sexy and run down the 70s were, and how opulent and conservative, the 80s with the Reagan era were, and then suddenly Gianni came in the 90s and mixed the two, the sexuality of the 70s and all the money from the 80s. So he became the designer that the world needed, because then in the 90s, all those two, I mean, sexuality and style, sexuality and fashion got married, and he was a designer for that time. And he understood very well that combination, that marriage between sex and sexuality and sexual energy and fashion and the way you wanted to present yourself to the world. And of course, just by studying that, then that starts to give you, hints and clues about who the character might have been. And also, of course, there was a lot of documentation available on Gianni, and of course, I took a look at that. And I was very, very, very lucky to have access to people who were very close to Gianni Versace, who were generous enough to open up and share their insights with me. Of course, as any other journalist, I can't reveal who they are.
But what did they teach you? Was it mannerisms?
No, it was more the mannerisms, and that, I mean, that was in the videos and the documentaries of the time, and I tried to approach that with a lot of subtlety. I tried and respect, because in the end, when you play a biographical character that a lot of people know, especially one that was, it was only 20 years ago, when he went away. So there are a lot of documentation and videos and everything. You have to be very careful, because it is not a photograph. It is a painting. So it's not an exact copy. It's just an approximation. I mean, to try to get close to the essence of that character. And I think that's what we tried to do. And what these sources shared with me was, anecdotes and their own personal experiences with his personality. Things that when you look at the brand of Versace and the house of Versace, the first thing that comes to our mind is the exuberance and the hedonism and the luxury and the lush and the sexuality, and yeah, a lot of that was true to his obsessions, but he was rather, according to the people I talked to, he was rather shy and reserved, and he would go to bed rather early than stay up partying all night. He wanted to be surrounded by a lot of the people from all walks of life, and he wanted to be inspired by that, and he was very democratic in that sense, but he was a very private person as well.
A lot like Andy Warhol, that kind of same personality.
Yeah, and very focused on his family. I mean, his family was the most important thing, and that's where also I could see, and Penelope as well, we could see a bridge to between the characters and ourselves, because we're very close to our families and very close to our siblings. So it was very easy for me and for Penelope to establish that connection, because we know the dynamic very well, and we're Latin. So
Yes.
and if there's something that unifies Latin people, in which the Italians are also included, is how comfortable we are at expressing emotions. And she's Spanish and I'm Venezuelan, and we do express emotions, especially in family,
Yes.
dynamics. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So when you're dressed up in the Versace outfits, especially I'm thinking like the open robes, the swim trunks, and then the prosthetic hairline where you have less hair, do you feel more vulnerable or more powerful in that?
Well, I think that the closer you are to the character, the more powerful you feel. I don't have a problem with physical transformation if it's what requires to really get under the skin of the character. There are certain things that you really need to feel in your body, and for me it was important to change my body. He wasn't a fat guy at all, but he was the typical Italian guy that would eat what he wanted and really not exercise, and that's also a message, or where your focus is. So for me, it was also fun because I was eating all the delicious Italian things, that I think that he used to eat. So it was a fun process. But yeah, I think it was important to put on the weight and to really live, inhabit his skin, or to try to feel what inhabiting his skin would feel like. In the trunks, and it was great to swim in that pool and to be completely indulgent with whatever I wanted to eat during those months. So yeah, it was fun.
What was it like working with Ricky Martin? One of the strongest scenes is your death scene. And then there's a parallel scene at the end where he is experiencing his own overdose, and you both are in the arms of someone. Tell me about your reaction to that scene.
Working with him has been a dream. He's an incredible artist that I've been admiring for such a long time, and now he's one of my best friends. Thanks to, in great part to this experience that we lived together playing Antonio and Gianni. So he gave himself completely. And I, it's funny because funny for the lack of a better word. It's very interesting what happened in the first episode, because basically I played dead most of it, but the reality is that Gianni was declared dead over 40 minutes after he was shot. So the thought that he might have been able to feel everything that was going around him, but just not able to respond, haunted me for a long time. Because he was out, but he wasn't dead when he was found on the stairs. When Antonio hugged him, when he was put into the ambulance, he was not dead yet. He was declared dead in the hospital about 40 minutes later. So that thought haunted me, and I felt Ricky's as Antonio energy and commotion and shock. There was really, and it's interesting because of course I couldn't open my eyes to see it, but I felt it, and that feeling is very vivid to me still, because Ricky didn't save anything. He gave it all out, and the same thing he did on the final episode. When Antonio tries to take his own life and he almost died, that was incredible. I cried when I watched the last episode. Ricky really moved me. He really committed to this character, and I think that we're gonna see a lot of Ricky Martin as an actor in the future, and we'll be just so lucky to keep seeing him performing. He's a great actor and very committed, very very alive. Everything that he does is very alive, and I love him very much. So it was great that this project brought us together. He was the first person I told him about the project. Yeah, because I had just talked to Ryan and to my agents, and everything was already worked out. And then when I got the call, I was meeting Ricky at a gallery. And then I told him, and a week later, Ryan called him. So there's some very interesting facts there, like mystical things that happen around this project.
Yeah, now you're part of a very exclusive group of people, the Ryan Murphy crew.
Mm.
Is there any future projects that just like putting it out there, nothing that is known, but is there any future projects you would like to do with Ryan Murphy? Perhaps a historical figure you'd like to play? Or?
Well, I mean, I haven't thought about it that way, but yeah, it is. I think that Ryan has created an amazing culture around his work and with everyone who collaborates with him, not only actors, but the rest of the heads of departments. I think that he really trusts himself, and therefore he trusts others. Mm-hmm. He empowers people so that everyone works on top of their game and giving it all out, and that's the best environment to work in. There's a lot of trust among everyone, and actually, this was a big project, in the television sphere, and however it felt every day when we were on set, it felt that they were shooting this independent movie, with a lot of comfort, but with a lot of freedom, and everyone could really explore their creativity and help each other and add new nuances to the scenes. And I'm not only talking about actors, I'm talking about the rest of the crew. And yeah, there's a kind of like repertory group kind of dynamic to what Ryan does. And most creators, I mean, the big directors and the big producers, from the golden era of cinema, not only here in the United States, but also in Europe, they have always worked with the same people because it's a shortcut. It's a shortcut to what you want. I mean, once you feel understood and you feel that you share the same values and the same abandon and the same there, then I guess that's what brings you back to work with the same people. But at the same time, clearly, Ryan keeps his eyes open and his curiosity for other people open, because then he keeps adding people like us, for example.
Yeah.
So he's a very generous person, and I'm very happy to have him in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Final question.
Yeah.
What are the Emmys after parties going to look like with you, Ricky, Penelope, Judith, Finn, all in attendance?
It's gonna be great, because really, it doesn't happen on every project, but it did happen on this one. We all became very close.
Yeah.
And we all became very close friends, and we're really very happy every time we see each other. And it's gonna be a fun after party round. These Emmys, also because the Emmys have this very special qualities. The fact that a lot of people that have been working together for a long time get together that night. Mm-hmm. So there's a very family, oriented dynamic. So it's there's a relax, and there's a sense of ease that I remember my first Emmys and about 6 years ago, and I do remember how chill that room was, So the parties were great.
Yeah.
Because people have been working together, maybe in one show for 7 years, but they worked in another one for another 5 years. So everyone knows each other in a way. So it's very relaxed, and of course that is perfect for the after parties.
We hope to see you out on the dance floor.
Now, of course you will. You will. I'm Latin. You will see me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Edgar.
much. Thank you.
Bye.